Thank you again for joining Nourish Together on our Wellness Wednesdays. And I am so excited to have this conversation today with yoga therapist Joao Paulo Pereira. And Joao is an amazing yoga instructor. I met him about 4 years ago in Santa Rosa and was lucky enough to be able to do a bunch of his lessons, a bunch of his classes, and then connect with him during one of my group detoxes. He came and did a piece with everyone there, which was really rich for everybody participating. And then during the pandemic, I got to do a couple of his online classes, which sadly he's not offering them online anymore. But his website is on the comments in the stream so that you can see some of the videos that he put up, so that you can also have a chance to do some of the work that he has put out there. And his instruction is so um, thorough and kind and funny. So it's like the perfect combo, I think. And Joan, I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about what you do and why you do it.
Thanks for having me, Thais. It's a pleasure to be here sharing. I am a embodiment and movement enthusiast, and I've been diving into that knowledge since I was 17 years old and fell in love with first yoga and many different modalities that I've studied and practiced myself and shared with others. And it's really my passion, my honor, my pleasure to instruct, to share others, to teach other people how to share these these practices. And that's the reason why I do it is is because it really touches me and has transformed me so much and has given so much clarity and groundedness and direction to myself that I could not be living without sharing this with others. So it's my calling.
That's wonderful. Thank you. One thing I want to mention is that when João and I first met, we found out that we were actually born in the same town in Brazil, in Brasilia. So that was a really neat connection. And so to then see this beautiful being that's like sharing this knowledge and this life experience of helping people come into alignment. I, you know, the range of ages in Joanne's classes were from, early teens to 80s, and everybody got something out of it. And I would see people coming back week after week, like people didn't want to miss Joanne's class. And I think it's because of your love of it and your passion for it really came through, and your care.
Mm,
So thank you.
thank you.
So I'm wondering, is there something to you? And of course, wellness is such a broad term, right? But I'm thinking, like, in your mind, through your lens with body and movement and alignment, is there something that defines wellness?
The first thing that comes to mind is presence in the body, and a sense of harmony and joy that we find when we are in alignment with our purpose, right? When we are doing things that nourish us, when we are in community, um, when we are able to give and receive love, when we're able to take care of ourselves and our bodies, and all that to me is what defines wellness. And it's a practice because we keep learning and learning with, you know, and enhancing ourselves over our lives. So it's the practice of searching for that, of choosing that, of seeking that awareness, that presence, and that joy.
Beautiful. Yeah, especially as the environment around us changes, right? And the seasons change and the um, situations change, like now living through this pandemic. Yeah, there's so much choosing, right, that we can do in that regard. And so, with that, how do you feel like nutrition plays a role in that? Because we want to get to today's theme of mindful eating. How does this practice of presence in the body and movement, alignment, yoga, some of those philosophies, how does nutrition play into that?
Right. So I was just having this really beautiful conversation last night with a friend that came to visit, just serendipity, came through town and was like, wow, he's also like an embodiment enthusiast, amazing body worker, super knowledgeable. And part of our talk was like, why we were talking about why we do these practices and why we commit to, say, a disciplined practice. And it is because of the fact that when we have practiced that enough, it it almost like spreads and leaks into your routine, into your daily life, into what you do when you're not practicing, right? So you get to experience, a state of relaxation or a state of like empowerment or energy in whatever practices or exercise you do. Doesn't have to be a yoga practice or even a spiritual practice, but any type of self-care routine. Yeah. And and the reason why we do it, that presence comes from this place of like, um, how can we sustain that state where it's not something, the practice itself, the whatever self-care or wellness practice one has, or movement practice or exercise practice, is not something separate and detached from the rest of the activities we do in our lives, including nutrition. So how can we bring, if you're a runner, you're running and you pay attention to your breath and you pay attention to your gait and you pay attention to the level of intensity that you're putting in your running. Or if you're lifting weights, you're keeping track of your form. Or if you're a yogi, you're working on your alignment and your breath. And whichever modality, whichever type of movement or practice, even a meditation practice, the commitment to meditating and welcoming and being compassionate with oneself when you get distracted and when you're all of it. Um, the the main reason why I engage in what I engage is so that that can be translated to the other things that I do. So when I'm eating, and I honestly, I haven't fully mastered it. I still catch myself eating in a way that's like I'm not fully present, and that's why it's called a practice, right? We all do at times, eating our snacks on the go, um, without really sitting with the the sacredness of like bringing nourishment to the body. So nutrition comes in that place, I guess, where um, we're nourishing ourselves. We're really transforming our body. That all that which we're ingesting is going to become our own cells. It's going to become the fuel that we use to to perform our activities, to love our loved ones, to exercise, to do to have our insights. And it's basically a pretty sacred act, a pretty powerful moment, that when when we allow ourselves to invite just a little bit of presence, a little bit of, okay, this is what I'm doing right now, and I don't need to be multitasking, and I can prioritize and carve some time out of my day to just sit and be with my food, be present with the food, create a relationship with the food, um, appreciate the food that we're eating. It's the same as when we sit with ourselves to do our yoga practice or to do our exercise practice or to sit and meditate. We sit in communion, right, with our minds, with our monkey mind there, or with our bodies that we want to transform and enhance, or our energy bodies in the yoga example. So I feel like that communion, right? That coming together, that nourishing together. Look at that.
Yay, you get extra points there. But no, it's so true because and I was actually having a conversation last night, also very apropos of what we're talking about today, about how so much of nutrition is not necessarily the what, but the how. And
Yeah.
that goes both for the food production, how is this food grown? Is it something that came out of the soil and the earth? Was
Mm.
it made by nature, made by man? Is it lightly cooked? Is it super processed? Like all those things will have an impact on our health. But above all, I think, is what state we are in, as we eat. How are we relating to the food? And because sometimes you could be eating the best food in the world, but if we're doing it in a hurry, angry, with this love-hate relationship, with things, it might not nourish us. Like it likely won't. But if we can eat in a way of really taking in that nourishment, being present, which allows us to better digest the food, getting out of our fight or flight and being in a more receptive state, then even if we eat something that might not be super ideal, it will still have a positive effect. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Ayurveda, which is a sister science with, yoga, and so much of the yoga therapy that I practice is based on Ayurveda, has everything to do with taming and balancing and making your Agni, which is your digestive fire, strong. And the Hatha yogis have a saying like you tame your agni to be able to digest anything. And in the texts, hatha yogis will even um, ingest poison in small quantities to tame their digestive fire to be able to be so strong that they can digest anything. And in Ayurveda, we say, um, everything can be food, every food can be medicine or poison depending on all the factors that are taken into account on the season, on the individual, on the conditions that you are um, eating them, ingesting them. So it resonates.
Yeah, beautiful. So if there was one thing, and just to preface that by saying there's not a one pill, there's not a one solution that will work for everyone. So that's there. At the same time, it would be amazing if we had a couple of hours to really unpack the subject, which we don't.
Hmm.
So in 2 minutes that we have left, is there something that you feel like people watching this could just take it as a short, easy to adopt practice that can just bring them closer to a more mindful state of eating? And I'll also say that there are links to both Joan's website in here and on my blog, there was a post on mindful eating. And in there, there's a link of a one-page guide that just goes from mindless to mindful. And you can just download that. You don't have to enter your email or anything. It's just on the blog so that it can be something that you can use daily to just remind yourself of these things. And so, Joan, what would you say?
I really appreciate the reminder, the thoughtful reminder of there is no one pill, by the way. But yes, the main thing that I apply in my yoga and yoga therapy is the breath. And the breath is a really beautiful way to really um, ground ourselves, right? Because every time we're in a altered emotional state, we can notice that our breath is changing with that. So we can do the opposite. The yogis have found that by changing the breath, you can also change your emotional state. So before a meal, making space and making time to sit down and be with your food, making a practice of attuning, using breath to attune to your hunger, to attune to your food in a way that cultivates that presence. And the way we can do that, if you don't mind doing this very, very brief just exercise, would be just finding a comfortable position with the spine upright and the shoulders and face muscles relaxed, and to the nostrils, and inviting a sense of softness and relaxation to all the mucous membrane, to all the internal tissues there in the nose and airways, and allowing that softness to just invite the breath in as easily as possible. Just rejoicing in that first nourishment, the most important nourishment, more even than the solid and liquid food that we intake, which is the oxygen we're able to absorb via the air we breathe. So noticing the pleasure, rejoicing in this softness and expansion and deepening and slowing down of the breath. And then if we're about to eat, we can attune to our tummies, bringing the awareness to the stomach, maybe moving the tongue and noticing the saliva as you smell your food, and think of its taste and how you can crave those nutrients and flavors and textures, allowing your digestive fire to really awaken, grounding in the breath and connecting with the digestion. And do that for, a minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, you name it, feeling that state of presence. That's that's my invitation.
As one of the beautiful teachers that I also follow named Adyashanti, it's connecting to a state of no problem. And I love that because if we can tell our bodies that there is no problem, then we can actually send energy and blood flow to digestion instead of to the brain and extremities where it tends to be on a daily basis when we're multitasking and stressed and
Yeah,
fighting or fleeing or freezing. So thank you so much for that. That was lovely.
you're
I just
very
really
welcome.
miss being in your classes, and I look forward to joining in when I can. And tell us, is there an event or workshop or anything coming up?
That will be soon up on my website when more details come. An equinox camp out with some practices that I'm going to facilitate and lots of dancing and embodiment. And for those who want to dive deeper, there is a training coming up in next summer in Thailand. It's a 200-hour teacher training with Thai massage, inspired body work, and yoga therapy, all based on Ayurveda, really diving deep, in partnership with my friend Kimana from the Thai Vedic school. Um, that you can find soon. We'll find more information about that on basayoga.com, basayoga.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It was such a treat to have you. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep doing this beautiful work you're doing, Thais.
Thank you.